Today, I transition from talking about assessed value into talking about fair market value and appraised value. I'm helping you better understand these terms so that when you are going to sell or to buy, you understand the role they play in relation to the asking price of a home. I'm Bethany Warnches, real estate agent with Addison Jones, and you are watching Tuesday Talks with Bethany, where I answer real estate FAQs. So the last video that I recorded, I did a deep dive into assessed value. And if you missed it, you can go back and watch it and learn all about assessed value. But if you don't feel like watching another video, I am just going to give you the quick summary here about what some of those main points of that video was. So first of all, I emphasized how the assessed value exists to be a tax system for your municipality. What it does is it assigns what portion of the local property tax is covered by your specific property, your home. I also brought to attention the fact that the assessed value is not updated regularly by many municipalities. And I wanted to give you a real life example. So to hit this point home, I was out at a seller's property who wanted to learn the value of their property because they are considering selling. And while I was there, they showed me a letter that they got from the village in the fall of 2022. And I'm out here and it's winter of 2023. And on this letter, it said that the village was going to be doing a municipality-wide reassessment. So reassessing all of the homes within the village. And also on this letter, what it said is that the whole village had not been reassessed in its entirety in 18 years. So I really think this hits my point home that many municipalities do not assess regularly. So unless you know that your assessed value is recent and someone has been in your property and actually knows what your home is like, then don't be too attached to that number and don't think that it's exactly where you should go when it comes to pricing your home for sale. Don't think it's what you should list it for. Take it with a grain of salt instead. So that assessed value is located on the tax bill. What else you will likely see on the tax bill is a fair market value. And so now I'm going to transition into talking about fair market value. Now, fair market value is on the tax bill, but when a real estate agent comes out and gives you a value, that's also a fair market value. So what is this difference between fair market value on the tax bill and fair market value that a real estate agent gives you? Well, first of all, let's just hit the definition of what fair market value is. So it is the amount a property will sell for in an arm's length transaction on the open market. Okay, terms. What is an arm's length transaction? That is a term meaning that we don't have an overly motivated, desperate seller or buyer on either end. It's just a regular buyer or seller out there buying and selling a property. And how the rest of this definition describes it is saying a willing seller not obliged to sell the property and a willing buyer not obliged to purchase it. So other situations like this are properties between family or close friends that might be selling for a discount, or someone who's just really, really desperate because they need the money, they need to sell quickly before they go into foreclosure, something like that. So it's just a regular sale with none of those situations. And then it's also on the open market, meaning that the house goes up for sale, the for sale sign goes up in the yard. It is on the MLS online that everybody can see it, and it's not just only a couple people know about it. It's where it's on the open market to have the most competition that it possibly can. So the amount of property will sell for in an arm's length transaction on the open market is what fair market value is. So the fair market value on the tax bill, let's talk about that first. So it's supposed to be within 10% of assessed value. So either above or below, so 90 to 110%. And as you just heard about how non-reliable assessed value is, I am going to echo that for fair market value on the tax bill and say just take that with a grain of salt. Now, when it comes to fair market value from an agent, that is very different. So a real estate agent coming up with your fair market value should be doing these following things. So they should be viewing your property. They should be learning about the updates that you have done. They should be taking into consideration the condition of your property. So an example would be, is your roof old and the shingles are falling off, or did you just put a brand new roof on? They should be taking into consideration the condition of the home. Is it a house that smells like smoke and it's going to be really hard to get out of the walls and the carpet and is just really intense? Or does it just smell neutral in there? These are things when it comes to condition that a real estate agent is going to be paying attention to. Also, they are going to pay close attention to your specific location. They are going to evaluate homes that are comparable to yours that have recently sold, as well as looking at current competition. So this is how a real estate agent comes up with a price, and I am going to say that this is the most accurate that you are going to get. It's called a CMA, or a comparative market analysis. From here, I want to shift into the appraisal. Now, an appraisal is done similar to a CMA that an agent does. As a seller, you may want to have more than one professional opinion when you are going to go on the market. So in that case, if you're going on the market soon, you could hire an appraiser to get another professional opinion. But what there is for you to also know is that many agents do complimentary CMAs. So this is a good opportunity for you as a seller to interview 2 or 3 agents and get a few different opinions and viewpoints. And it's also just a good idea for you to feel them out, understand how they operate. Do you click with their personality? Do you feel like they're a good fit for you? So those CMAs, those complimentary CMAs, are really step 1 in their listing process. And so then you just pick from there which one you want to continue forward with. And then on the other hand, if you're hiring an appraiser, you need to understand that that is a service that you are going to have to pay for. Now, an appraisal and a CMA are both a snapshot in time. An appraisal from 2 years ago is not going to be accurate, and it should not be taken into consideration. And that's why I said if you want to hire an appraiser, you should be doing it as close to listing time as possible and not pull something out that's in a back drawer from years ago, because that's not going to be accurate. So if an appraisal is from the past few months and it's recent, then it can definitely be taken into consideration. As an agent, if more than a month has passed since I've done my CMA, what I like to do is pull up the MLS again and look at, have any more properties sold that are comparable, that I should maybe be taking those into consideration when we make a final price decision and adjust it all? Or what is our competition looking like? Do we have less competition? Do we have more competition? Because that plays a role as well. So it's just important to make sure that everything is as recent as it possibly can be when you price your home. Another thing to know about CMAs by real estate agents and appraisals by appraisers is that they are meant to be objective, because they are based on data, but in reality, they are also subjective. So what do I mean by that? So like I said, we all look at objective data. We look at days on market. We look at how much property is sold for. What is the square footage? What is the condition? What is the age of the home? We look at all of that same objective data, but at the same time, the data that we choose to use can be different. So say appraiser pulls 3 houses and agent pulls 3 houses and they put them together in their little analysis. Well, what if only one of those 3 homes are overlapping, right? And also the conclusion we draw is subjective. So looking and analyzing that data, how do we come up with a number that we come up with? We all have a little bit different of a method to get there. And so that's why I want you to understand that although we have the objective data that we're all looking at, we can be using different data sets and drawing different conclusions and be coming up with different information for you. So why is this important to know? It's just kind of important to know that there is those nuances there. So when a home has an accepted offer and the bank does an appraisal and an appraiser comes out and does an appraisal on the house, it's not likely that if you had a second appraiser come through that they would come up with the exact same number for your property as the first appraiser did. So say, for example, whether you're a seller or a buyer, the appraisal comes in $2,000 low. Now, that is a problem and it has to get negotiated out if you want to keep moving forward. But what I want you to understand is that number is not a concrete, stuck in the mud number. So if an appraiser would look at some different data, they may adjust to their number. A different appraiser could come out and come up with a completely different number. And 6 months from now, after that property has closed, the value of that property 6 months from now is likely to be different than the day the appraisal was actually done, because the market is always moving. So this is just to remind you that the number is fluid and not concrete, and just not to get so hung up on it. In summary, let's talk about assessed value, fair market value, and appraised value and what they mean to you. The assessed value is something that you should take with a grain of salt when it comes to list price or purchase price, unless an assessment was done recently and someone has been inside the property. Then fair market value. As for the one that goes on the tax bill, I am going to echo what I just said about assessed value and take it with that grain of salt. When it comes to fair market value from a real estate agent who did a CMA on your house, I am going to say that that has a pretty high level of accuracy for you. The appraisal, if an appraisal was done and it was recent, then that can also be a pretty good level of accuracy for you. What I also want you to know before I go today is that an appraiser and an agent doing an appraisal and a CMA on your house, when they come up with a price, they will likely fall into a similar price range, but not the exact same pinpoint number within that range. So as a seller, I say don't hone in on that exact number. Instead, take a look at the range you are given and then decide where to price your home within that range based on your goals. And buyer, on the other hand, also don't hone in on that exact number and be stuck on it, because like we just talked about, that number is fluid and not concrete. It can change from person to person, and 6 months from now, your house could be worth more or less. So it's just knowing that that number is moving, and just realize that if an appraisal comes in low, you're going to have to negotiate it out and work through it. But that appraisal number may not be the most important thing in the grand scheme of things, if you really love that house and plan to be there long term. So hopefully today, as a buyer or a seller, you learned more about assessed value, appraised value, and fair market value, and that when these terms come up when you are in the buying or selling process, you'll be more educated and have a better understanding of what these terms mean in relation to a listing price or asking price.